My girlfriend has this beautiful ball gown dress that I am dying to get her to wear somewhere, but I can't think of any events for us to go to where it would be appropriate for her to wear that. Help me out, fellow men of Reddit. Edit. Both in our mid-20s, just starting our careers in Chicago. Wow, you all have given me some amazing ideas. I'll certainly be writing as many down as I can. Thank you all so much for helping me give my girlfriend a night to remember. Story 1. Find a fundraiser or gala to go to, or take her to any expensive restaurant and have a drink at a swanky place. If she's in that gown, make sure you're at least in a suit. I live in downtown Chicago, so contact me if you want specific ideas for places to go with a certain budget. I just took my new girlfriend to a nice restaurant downtown, bought tickets for the enclosed Ferris wheel, and then had a drink at a great classy lounge. Good luck. Story 2. Book a photo shoot just for fun. It doesn't have to be with an expensive photographer either. There are many out there who are still learning or starting their business and will do it for a reasonable price. Take the photos in a park or local bar, depending on the mood you're going for. You can rent a tuxedo, both of you can get dressed up, have a couple of drinks, and just have some fun. I'm sure she will love it. Story 3, lady here. Depending on her threshold for social awkwardness, you could take her anywhere in the dress and have a great time. As long as you dress up too, it could be fun to strut into an Applebee's or bowling alley being extra together. Definitely would be a memorable evening. Just make sure it's not a place with indoor smoking or a place where she'd get too dirty, so the dress doesn't get damaged. Beyond that, your ages and city or general region would probably help for getting solid suggestions. Some cities have dressy lounge-style nightclubs with live music, comedy, or magic acts. Some venues offer live murder mystery dinner theater where you're expected to dress up, usually staying within a certain decade or time period. Story 4. When I was in my 20s, during the pre-American Revolutionary War period, we had a fancy house party. It was a blast, even though the house we hosted it at wasn't super fancy. We all dressed to the nines. We had finger food, champagne, and of course we had typical beer and liquor. It was an awesome New Year's Eve. Story 5. You don't really have to have an excuse. You can just take a fancy stroll through the park, wear a tuxedo and pretend you are the main character in a Dickens story. Story 6. I bought 2 season tickets to the Baltimore Symphony and suddenly had pretty girls saying yes to dressing up and going out with me. I'm not a chick magnet. Story 7. Take her to the ballet. I am going in a few months and I am so excited to dress up in my fancy clothes. Dancing is also another option. In my area, they have a historic ballroom, and every Thursday to Sunday they have live music and dancing. An hour before the live music, they have a mini lesson on the style of dance. See if there is anything like that in the area. The dance and lesson cost only $20 a person for both parts. Story 8. Go somewhere fancy for New Year's Eve? I dare someone to try to criticize a lovely young woman dressed fancily out in Chicago on New Year's Eve. Other than that, a lot of people will still dress casually. For me, I didn't do casual but didn't go big. But it's because I don't have something super fancy for the opera, but you will find old school ladies who go all out. And the building is beautiful. She won't look out of place, and anyone who would think otherwise is technically the one underdressed. Story 9. Chicago Auto Show first look for charity. It's the first night of the show and is black tie. It's awesome. All you can eat and drink, no lines to see the cars, and the proceeds go to good causes. Even people who are not into cars love it. Story 10. Another vote for the signature room. Assuming it's not overcast, the colder weather makes for a crystal clear 360-degree view of the city. Been there a handful of times, and it's always a great experience. The food is unbelievable as well. Story 11. As a female, I can say I wouldn't wear an actual ball gown really anywhere except a themed event, which would usually have a serious price tag on it. Now, sorry to make assumptions, but considering you're a male and likely don't spend much time looking at dresses, you may be mistaking just a formal gown for a ball gown. I believe this may be the case because I don't know any woman who owns a ball gown unless it's a wedding or prom dress, or a costume. A ball gown is like a corset at the top and puffs out at the hips, and would really only be appropriate for the aforementioned themed event. An evening gown, however, could work at any formal event or outing like a trip to the theater, a formal wedding, things like that. Story 12. I mentioned it for going all in another comment, but the Drake always has a New Year's Eve black tie event. I checked really quickly, and it shows that it's $255 per person, which is pricey to say the least, but that's for sure going to be a formal spot and right on the lake next to Oak Street Beach. There's a lot going on in that area in particular. Story 13. See if the Chicago Symphony Orchestra or the Chicago Opera has a performance on December 31st. I know the Minnesota Orchestra usually does, and they make a bigger deal out of it since it's New Year's Eve, and lots of people dress up more than normal for those. Otherwise, there are plenty of musicals and things happening in the area for you. It wouldn't be unheard of to get super dressed up for any of those events on New Year's Eve also. Story 14. 1. An opera. 2. A musical. The dress code is typically a bit more relaxed, but the show will be more entertaining for the average person. 3. Chicago Symphony Orchestra. 4. A cruise, a legitimate cruise, or if there is some sort of riverboat or lakeboat cruise along the shore. 5. The most upscale restaurant you can manage. 6. A photo shoot, as in arrange one for the two of you. That's all I have offhand, but these are all from personal experience. I am a classical musician, so I have a lot of experience with the first three especially. Story 15. A restaurant that has a nicer menu and is higher end. Dress up with her and make it a thing. Who cares what anyone else thinks? Be spontaneous and fun. Philharmonic, dance lessons, find a fundraiser for a charity you both like. Story 16. Go bowling or try mini golf, followed by a fancy dinner. Make the mundane fascinating, and have a great story to tell while possibly making more friends. Create your own fancy holiday or tradition with a super formal dress code, and make it an annual event to look forward to. Alternatively, find a local charity event in a metropolitan area. Some host fancy events where you can dress up, and the cost of attendance goes to a good cause. Story 17. I once invited my girlfriend to go bowling back in school. I even told her it was bowling. For teen standards, she was pretty much overdressed. Glittering fingernails and lip gloss. Still had a great time and people were looking too. Other than that, I don't know what your girl is really into. Nowadays, we like to visit musicals or go to the theater, though we don't prefer serious plays. Also, if you're willing and she's into it, try to visit an opera. Seriously, it doesn't even have to be a fancy opera house, but a traveling and well-known theater group. I saw a few myself, and a lot of people dress up like they're visiting a high-class restaurant. Needless to say, if you don't like musicals, opera might be even worse. Story 18. If you're new to Chicago, I would suggest the Odyssey or Spirit Dinner Cruise. They leave from Navy Pier and usually include a DJ or live band. I had a high school prom on one and go back every once in a while. Definitely a night to dress up. You also have many good places to go and dress up, either in Greektown, Little Italy, Gold Coast, or the Loop. There is also an exclusive and fancy restaurant in the Drake. Story 19. Anywhere you want, but you had better get a good vintage tuxedo and glam it up with her. I took a vintage tuxedo with me to college. Our choral group did a formal night out in the dorm cafeteria. Ball gowns for the ladies, tuxedos for the guys. One of the ladies brought her harp, and the guys did an a cappella quartet. One philosophy major gave a great speech on some topic or another. It's been over 40 years. Story 20. Fancy dinner, masquerade ball, or a New Year's Eve party, as someone mentioned already, and a swanky hotel with a surprise bed of roses, warm candlelit bubble bath with rose petals. Story 21. The opera. Go to something awesome like Pagliacci or Tosca. Make a whole evening of it with drinks, dinner, and the show. If you think you will not like opera, you are probably wrong. Once you have been to one of the greats, it is a moving and powerful experience. Source. Thought opera would be boring until I actually went. Story 22. This is a great question. Ballet, opera, charity gala, Mardi Gras event, or just because? Tell her you want to see her in that dress and make a big deal of it. She will be the star attraction wherever you take her, and you all can have fun making up stories about why you're so dressed up all night. Story 23. opera or some classical orchestra event. Always people dress to the nines at those. My wife and I will dress up. I own a tuxedo, she has many flapper dresses and gowns. Hit the opera, and then retire to some punk dive bar afterward for a cocktail. Always a fun time. People love to talk to you in those situations. Life is fun. Story 24. Cosplay conventions like Comic Convention or Dragon Convention. Any small ones welcome people who dress up with conviction. People attend these things precisely to see people with spirit like your girlfriend, willing to dress up and be out there. Story 25. New Year's Eve is only weeks away. Valentine's Day is around the corner. Broadway Arts. If you are a veteran, call any veterans of foreign wars. Limo, dinner, and a romantic comedy always works. Story 26. A nice and formal restaurant. Emphasize the formal part. Going out dancing or seeing a play. All are equally intensive but different types of dressing up. Story 27. I went with my girlfriend, now she's my wife, to an opera for the first time. I wore a suit and she wore a gown. It was so fun to dress up. Not many people dress like this to the opera anymore, but some people do. A random couple came up to us at some point and gave us their tickets to their front row seats. We were in the nosebleed section during intermission because they loved her dress so much, and their babysitter got sick, so they had to rush home. Story 28. Take her to the Nutcracker Ballet. It's Christmas time and would be such a fun date night for you too. If you're not into that, you could also see if there are any symphony or opera performances going on. I'm a girl who loves playing dress up, and those are the three places I would wear a ball gown to if I didn't have a big event or banquet to go to. Have fun. And you're very sweet for wanting to do something for her, so she can finally wear that dress. Good on you, original poster. Story 29. Hey, let me know where you end up. My girlfriend has this sexy red dress that is way too revealing for my company holiday party, but I would love to see her wear it. Story 30. Find a high-end charity gala. There will be a photographer there, and watching rich people bid on items is fascinating. We've attended these for free sometimes and have been able to leave with affordable weekend getaways that the more affluent wouldn't bid on. Story 31. Not everyone dresses up, but some people do. They both also have how to swing dance lessons before the dancing starts. Story 32. I recommend the Signature Room on top of the John Hancock Center. Almost as tall as the Willis Tower, except the money it takes to get up to the top you can use to sit by a window and have drinks. No matter where you go, take the water taxi at least once. It's cheap and a good way to see the city with company. Story 33. Dude, take her to a legitimate theater or something like that. That's what I've always done. I like that stuff though, so if you don't, it could be boring and she won't have a great time. Story 34. Debutante cotillion. Story 35. I'm not very familiar with the art and museum scene in Chicago, but it's Chicago. There must be many fancy dress galas and galleries with events happening at any time. Story 36. Art opening at an art museum. Look for their schedule. You might have to join the sponsor club or something, but often there are tickets you can buy. I haven't been for a long time, but at least when I'd go to these, it would be a cocktail party scattered throughout the museum with everyone dressed up. Maybe not quite as dressed up as that dress implies, though. Story 37. Go to see an evening opera or even an orchestra. Some of those people really dress up for it, sometimes it's a lot more low-key. Actually, ball gowns are more for high-class charity events. If it's less poofy, you can get away with one of the above I mentioned, though. Story 38. Learn to swing dance. Most social dances have a lesson beforehand and are quite fun, much more relaxed compared to a full-blown ballroom dance and less seedy than most clubs. It depends on the ball gown, though. Most will work. Story 39. Dinner, then a New Year's Eve party. You also need to dress. Get a room at the Palmer House. Dress there. This puts you near many nice places. Dinner in the hotel. No winter coat required. Drinks in the lobby bar. Everyone will see her in her gown. Go to the theater or Chicago Symphony. The Nutcracker and A Christmas Carol are both playing in Chicago in December. You are a keeper. Story 40. It all depends on where you live. I too live in Chicago, and there aren't many fancy restaurants near me, mostly just convenience stores, taco restaurants, and regular markets. However, if you live downtown, there are many fancy restaurants that you and she would probably enjoy as long as you're up to spend a lot. Story 41. Funeral. Usually, the dress code is pretty good. Occasionally, you have that one uncle who shows up in jeans and a tucked-in pearl snap, but otherwise, everyone seems to follow the dress code. Story 42. Hear me out. Tell her you are going to a nice restaurant, but first stop by the park and get a few pictures of her feeding whatever local animal is normally there. Then still go to the restaurant. Story 43. Make an event like your own prom. Take her to the fanciest restaurant you know, where the cheapest meal is $50. Then get a limousine for the night. Take another couple with you for fun. After dinner, go out to the theater or someplace to dance. End the evening at a fancy martini bar, and take everyone home. It would be a night to remember for sure. Story 44. Throw a fun and fancy house party, almost like a costume ball. Or maybe schedule a friend to take photos of you two dressed up, and then go to dinner afterward. If your local art museum has a late night, take her there and go to dinner afterward. Story 45. Born and raised in Chicago. If she likes music, the Lyric Symphony Orchestra, or the opera, tell her you're renting a suit or tuxedo. It'll let her know what the intentions are. Story 46. Other options. Ballet, opera, symphony, or other big music performances at your local big music hall. Although that kind of depends on what this ball gown is like. Is it something you can sit in? Story 47. Do you want to show her off or make her feel special? Or both? You could take her to a really nice restaurant or even plan a nice private rooftop dinner for just the two of you. The latter is obviously for when it warms up.